Evan and his friends arrive on the Italian coast, where they stop to relax at a small seaside cafe. As Evan scans the surroundings, his attention is drawn to a woman in a red dress sitting alone. He approaches her and starts a casual conversation. To his surprise, the woman directly invites him to spend time with her that very night. Taken aback by her boldness, he finds her approach a bit too sudden and politely declines, explaining that he already has plans with his friends. Instead, he offers to meet up the following day. But the woman is persistent. She wants to see him that night. Still unsure, Evan tries again to push the meeting to tomorrow. The next day, Evan decides not to leave Italy with his friends, who are headed to Amsterdam. Though he tells himself it's to enjoy Italy longer, the real reason is clear. He wants to see the woman from the cafe again. Determined to stay longer, Evan begins searching for a job and eventually finds work at a local farm. The job includes a place to stay and comes with clear duties and expectations. While wandering through the town, Evan unexpectedly runs into the same woman again. This time, they officially introduce themselves, and Louise tells him she's a student studying genetic evolution. They talk deep into the night and eventually grow physically intimate. The next morning, Louise wakes before Evan, and her face begins to shift into something inhuman. Without waking him, she leaves quietly. Later that day, they cross paths again at an ice cream shop. Evan confronts her about her sudden departure, but Louise pretends not to recognize him or remember anything about the night before. Evan is left stunned, until Louise laughs and admits she was just messing with him. That night, while they're at Louise's home, she catches a glimpse of her reflection and notices her leg is starting to transform. She grabs a syringe and quickly tells Evan she needs a moment in the bathroom. Inside, her body is on the verge of mutating into a beastly form, but she manages to stabilize herself with an injection. Meanwhile, Evan takes a look around and notices that her apartment is filled with books and posters about human anatomy and evolutionary biology. After she returns, Evan invites her out again. He suggests going to the beach, but Louise declines, saying that she's extremely sensitive to sunlight. During dinner, Evan asks the waiter to take a photo of them, but Louise looks away just as the shutter clicks, and the photo comes out strangely awkward. She quickly changes the topic, steering the conversation toward Evan's family. Her question unsettles him, and he becomes visibly uncomfortable, hesitant to speak about it. Louise grows frustrated with his silence and leaves, walking toward the beach. Evan follows, apologizing and trying to explain. He eventually opens up and shares the pain behind his reluctance, giving her a rare moment of honesty. In response, Louise opens up as well, showing him her heterochromia, a rare trait that causes her eyes to be two different colors. The next day, while treating a patient at the clinic, Louise hears a comment about an odd smell. Though she hides her concern with a smile, she checks and discovers a wound forming beneath her arm, another signal of her condition deteriorating. Later that day, Evan meets her again and gives her a thoughtful gift, a book whose cover features a figure with heterochromatic eyes, resembling Louise herself. The gesture touches her and they head out to their usual cafe. But during the date, Louise starts to feel her body once again beginning to mutate. She excuses herself, saying she needs to prepare for an early day at the clinic. On her way home through the dark streets, a tourist approaches her and makes inappropriate advances, wrongly assuming she's available. As he gets too close, Louise loses control and shifts into a monstrous reptilian form, violently attacking him. His mangled body is discovered on the beach the next day. That evening, Evan visits Louise at her home, but she suddenly and coldly breaks off their relationship. Hurt and confused, Evan demands to know why, but she refuses to tell him. Heartbroken and confused, Evan returns to the farm. After finishing his work, he confides in the farm owner, Angelo, telling him he just got dumped. At that exact moment, immigration officers show up at the farm. Since Evan is working there illegally, Angelo warns him to run. In a moment of desperation, Evan rushes to Louise's house. As he approaches, he hears a loud noise coming from inside, like something falling, and without hesitation, he forces the door open. Louise is in the midst of a violent transformation, and her body is halfway changed, caught between human and something monstrous. She struggles on the floor, desperately reaching for a syringe. Evan doesn't hesitate. He grabs the syringe and injects it into her neck. Slowly, the convulsions subside. Her body relaxes and she returns to her human form. Evan stands in silence, stunned and frightened by what he's just witnessed. Once Louise is fully back to normal, Evan demands an explanation. At first, she avoids the question, but finally she begins to explain everything. She reveals that the woman on the cover of the book, the one with two different colored eyes, was actually her. which was taken over 2,000 years ago. The heterochromia she mentioned earlier was a genetic feature passed down not through different generations, but repeatedly through herself. Then she asks Evan if he knows anything about embryonic stem cells. Evan answers that he's heard of them being used for healing or anti-aging treatments. Louise then explains that her body is currently absorbing stem cells from her own embryo, which is how she manages to maintain her youth and halt the aging process. Hearing this, Evan is shocked and asks if she's pregnant now. Louise confirms and reveals that during their first night together, she intentionally made sure she would conceive. After 1 week of pregnancy, her body renews itself, resetting to the age of about 20 with DNA that is half new. This cycle repeats every 20 years. If she doesn't absorb the embryonic stem cells in time, her body begins reverting through the evolutionary stages of her ancient biology, turning her into something unrecognizable. Despite the surreal truth he's just learned, Evan tells her he wants to stay by her side. Louise, however, insists it's too dangerous and warns him that by tomorrow she could once again turn into something horrific. But Evan doesn't care and tells her he'll stay with her no matter what, even if they only have one more day together. They decide to spend their time meaningfully walking through the town and talking. Louise opens up about her long life. She's lived countless lives under different names, but that constant reinvention has left her emotionally exhausted. Eventually, they reach a church, but Louise's transformation begins again. Her face starts to shift and a tail begins to form. Evan urgently tells her to inject herself. The syringe contains a chemical that temporarily slows down her mutation. Evan then asks if there's any permanent way to stop this cycle. Louise answers that there is, but it's a dangerous choice. If she truly fell in love with someone, her brain would release enough oxytocin to interfere with the absorption of the embryonic stem cells. If that happens, she'll lose her ability to regenerate and become fully human, mortal, vulnerable, and aging like everyone else. Evan looks her in the eyes and asks if she loves him. Louise doesn't give a clear answer and says she doesn't know if she's ready to give up thousands of years of life for someone she's only just met. Still, Evan remains determined to show her what love truly means. He takes her to Pompeii, the place where she was originally born. There, Louise shares more of her personal history, telling him that her condition was inherited from her mother, and she has been living this way ever since. She warns Evan that tomorrow at sunrise, her body may undergo a final transformation. But Evan tells her that he's in love with her and will be with her no matter what happens. That night, Louise rests her head on his lap as Evan gently tells her stories about his life, about their time together, about all the joy they've shared. As dawn approaches, he begins to hear an eerie sound that usually signals her transformation. He turns to look at her, and to his amazement, Louise hasn't changed. She remains as she is, completely human. For the first time in thousands of years, she hasn't transformed, and the cycle has been broken. Louise has finally found real love. In doing so, she has lost her immortality, but gained something far more meaningful: the chance to live a normal, fleeting, and beautiful life with Evan.